From the FBU's point of view, there are many areas of difficulty that need to be addressed inside the current proposals, which do not appear to satisfy the Brigade's objectives for an increase in productivity at nil cost to the authority. As members will be aware, the Brigade has undergone many changes in recent times, and those changes have already delivered huge increases in productivity from station-based staff. Whilst the increased productivity has been delivered at relatively low cost or nil cost financially, they have in turn brought about inefficiency within inside the organisation, which has driven the need to change working patterns. The Brigade is now driven, like many other public sector areas, by target culture, and this is as a result of the Fire Service Act 2004, which has placed a larger emphasis on proactive prevention work rather than the previous reactive output that was delivered. But this should not change the central premise of this organisation. By definition, we are an emergency service, and much of what we do will always be reactive. To the general public, we are considered as an insurance programme for the people of London. Whilst productivity increases can be achieved, it may not be the case that such radical measures of change can deliver quality productivity that the authority desires. In fact, today's target culture and the drive for productivity is based upon quantitative rather than quality increases. Achievability is fundamental to any change, and at this time we do not believe that the current proposals will deliver achievability. The proposals on the face of it appear to show real-term productivity and flexibility gains, but in reality most things look achievable in theory but not always achievable in practice. We only need to look at the proposed start time to see that this will bring about further delays in inefficiency when moving resources and personnel across the Brigade due to the rush hour chaos that coincides with that particular time frame. This will further be compounded by the proposed work routines that again appear to show great productivity during specific periods throughout the day and evening. Yet the reality is that the Brigade policies and operating procedures conflict with the time stated in the document. And for example, if you take 0800 to 0830, 30-minute time span, where it says about driver's checks and, for example, ops readiness, the Brigade's own policy when taking out a driver training says to carry out your driver inspection, your checks, it takes 45 minutes. So that cannot fit into a 30-minute span. Any delay in any time period, regardless on those station work routines, will have a knock-on effect into the next period, thus reducing the claimed productivity increases. Surely the best direction is to smooth out the current inefficiencies that prevent the increased productivity from occurring within the current working patterns. And it is here that the FBU are prepared to make concessions, such as discussions on how and when staff can be moved around, so as to enable work to commence within achievable time periods. If we look at the way in which the proposals are written in respect to station work routines, members would be forgiven to think that station staff do either very little or nothing at all during specific times of the day, when in fact the opposite is the case, and the example being 20:30 to 23:59, where it says we only carry out urgent work. Currently, firefighters do carry out fire safety. Firefighters do move their meal breaks to go out and deliver training, and none of that is documented in the proposals. Station-based staff are not afraid of change. In fact, as already stated, they have undertaken considerable change over the last 5 years. But station staff do not readily accept change for change's sake. Neither should this authority ask them to do this, as it would stand in contradiction to the London Safety Plan 3. The FBU have fully participated in informal discussions around working patterns with management, and whilst it is noted at this time that we are not in a position to agree on the proposed changes, it is mutually agreed that a collective agreement is by far the best way to resolve the issue. With this in mind, it is also accepted by both sides that the discussion should continue to seek to achieve such an agreement. The FBU are committed to modernisation that brings about change for the better for both the service and the public we serve, but the FBU cannot support change that is either cuts-driven or detrimental to members' conditions of service. Finally, it is our view that if discussions continue, then I feel sure that an agreement can be reached which satisfies both the FBU and the authority, and one in which both objectives and productivity can be achieved.
Thank you, Chairman. This paper reports the current position regarding discussions between officers and the FBU in relation to changes to working patterns for station-based operational staff. The paper is an important step in the continued modernisation of the service and also progresses the London Safety Plan commitment to implement new working patterns for our operational station-based staff. The changes proposed in the report and the efficiencies that they will deliver are also an important step in delivering our aspirations for the service to be increasingly flexible and to continue to provide increased value for money. Supporting documents to the paper have been placed in the party offices, and these include the business case for change, the Fire Brigade Union response to the business case, and officers' response to the FBU response to the business case. However, in brief, there are three overarching reasons for the proposal to introduce changes described in the report. These are, firstly, to provide more time to carry out training. Secondly, to increase the time available to carry out community safety activities at times when we are most likely to be able to reach most of the people in London's diverse and at-risk communities. And thirdly, to provide more opportunity for flexible working for staff. The proposals in the report are to continue discussions with the Fire Brigade Union based upon the principles of, importantly, maintaining the 2, 2 and 4 rotating shift patterns, whereby firefighters work 2-day duties followed by 2 night duties, followed by 4 days off. And this is in reflection of the strong preference that we know of station-based staff to maintain this overall working pattern. It's also based upon equal length day and night shifts of 12 hours, the start of the day shift to be 8 o'clock in the morning and the night shift to be 8 o'clock in the evening, breaks for meals and other purposes to be more flexible and to be taken at times to be decided by local managers to suit the needs of the work being undertaken. The night shift to start later and be shorter in duration, with work allocated which reflects the most appropriate time of the day to do such work, and a rest period between the hours of 1 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning. The improvement in productivity is described in the business case and is summarised in paragraphs 15 and 16 of the report. This highlights an increase in productive time, as well as moving start and finish times away from the periods of peak operational demand. I believe that these two factors are very significant in providing the additional productive hours which are necessary if we are to continue to modernise and improve performance and achieve ever more challenging targets. In our view, the business case is sound. The Fire Brigade Union argue that the overall productive time increases outlined in our proposal are achieved by reducing the amount of current stand down or rest time. They also argue this could equally be achieved on the current 9 and 15-hour shifts by doing more work at night. This, however, misses the fundamental point made in the business case that there are certain periods of the day that are more usable for the most important activities we need to carry out, community safety and training, etc. Creating a longer day shift enables us to use this most productive time more effectively because it moves the disruptive shift changes earlier and later, creating a much bigger window of useful time than we currently have. It also makes the day shift longer overall, so we can be more flexible in using crews for off-station activities, like training for example. In shorthand, a longer shift pushes the disruption of the shift change into the less useful and usable time of early morning and mid-evening. We do recognise that the proposals are not popular with staff or their representatives, but remain committed to achieving a negotiated agreement. We also recognise that the proposals would have a greater impact on some members of staff than others, depending upon individual circumstances. For this reason, we are committed to considering individual circumstances and seeking to achieve appropriate adjustments wherever necessary. However, the equality impact assessment attached to the report does not indicate any adverse impact on any particular group which would weaken the proposals. The equality impact assessment is, as always, a developing document, and it would of course have been better if the Fire Brigade Union had not instructed FBU support groups not to take part in its development. However, we remain hopeful that we might be able to resolve this as discussions continue. Finally, the report describes the current position of discussions with the Fire Brigade Union, which is that we have failed currently to reach agreement, and as members have seen this afternoon, the Fire Brigade Union continue to pursue opposition to the proposals, and despite the assertions in their response, have only put forward quite limited alternative efficiency proposals, some of which would in fact result in considerable increases in cost. The paper therefore describes in paragraphs 25 to 28 the next stage that would be involved in the process before the authorities asked to make a final decision on implementation of the changes if agreement at local levels cannot be achieved.